Don't look now, but Freddy Gaudreau is one goal off of his career high, set back in 2022, 2023. So what has led to his resurgence after a down year last year? We'll tell you on today's episode of Locked On Wild.
Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team each and every day. And we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, we dive into a resurgent season for Freddy Gaudreau. We'll take a look at the reasons that he has put 2023-2024 in the rearview mirror and a couple of ways that he has been able to increase his production here this season. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild, credentialed media member, and host of the show since 2021. And this definitely caught me by surprise. Freddy Gaudreau, one goal off of his career high, which was set back in 2022-2023 of 19. And Goudreau is 9 points off of his career high, which was set back in 2021-2022. Now, the career high in points, probably not going to hit 9 points in the final 7 games. You never know. But the goals mark is definitely attainable, which could mean that we are in the midst of seeing Freddy Gaudreau's second best season as a member of the Minnesota Wild here. And of all the players that have either regressed or have had nice return to form seasons, if you're talking in the return to form category, I think Freddy Gaudreau, it's safe to say, is leading the pack. Freddy Gaudreau did not have a great season last year. We remember the 5-goal, 10-assist campaign that he had in 67 games played last year. And it got to the point that, you're talking about a buyout. You're talking about trying to trade him. Just doesn't seem like he has anything in the tank, and that the last couple of seasons were clear aberrations. Well, it's pretty evident that the aberration was what happens to him last year. And so if you're looking at some of the things that have changed for Freddy Gaudreau so far this season, number one, he's healthy. Last year, it just was a mess. And started right off the get-go. Goudreau getting injured early on in the season, courtesy of Ryan Reeves, a hit in the game against Toronto on October 14th last year, the second game of the season. And in an article that Michael Russo did after the year last year, Goudreau suffered injuries to his rib cage, tried to play through them, and finally had to be pulled from the lineup for 3 weeks. Ended up missing a total of 10 games. And Goudreau tried to gut through it, as many players do, but it's very clear that Freddie just was not able to really offer much offensively. And you think about it, injuries to your core, injuries to your ribs, you think about all the movements that are required in the game of hockey, whether it be shooting the puck or even simply trying to get, trying to skate, trying to push yourself up and down the ice. There's a lot of strength that is required in that core. I myself have never bruised or broken a rib. I can just about imagine having something that you deal with on a daily basis that hurts when you breathe. Brock Faber dealt with the same thing. And so it can certainly pinpoint what was a down season for Freddy Goudreau all told. As we mentioned last year, 67 games, 5 goals, 10 assists. He was a minus 23 collectively. He has not been a minus player any other season of his career. He shot 4.8% on the season. Now, he did see a pretty sizable reduction in minutes. He played 16 plus minutes per night the previous 2 seasons, dropped down to just under 14 in the 2023-2024 campaign. And there were a lot of different factors at play. So take the injury, for example. That is something that he just never got a really good feel for how to deal with. The other big factor in last year's campaign was the fact that Dean Evason ended up being relieved of his duties, which led to a different role for Freddy Gaudreau for the large bit of the end of that campaign last year. John Hines came in on November 27th of last year. And if you look at what happened basically through to the end of the season for Freddy Gaudreau after John Hines took over, Goudreau ended up in 58 games. In the final 58 games of the season, he had his 5 goals, 10 assists, and was playing under 14 minutes per night. You look at the previous 2 seasons, 16 minutes, 19 seconds in 2021-2022, and 16 minutes in 2022-2023 with Dean Evason, and was deployed in a lot of different situations under Dean, was largely relied upon to step in and fill different situations if players were out of the lineup. Step up on the second line. Step up on the top line sometimes. He was Dean's fill-in for key situations down the stretch. And so you lose some of that. That was one of the big changes that John Hines made when he took over, is Freddy Gaudreau wasn't his utility knife center, wasn't his safety blanket center. When John Hines took over, that was Joel Eriksson-Ek. And so a lot of those opportunities that Freddy Gaudreau had to be able to, get some additional opportunities here and there in the lineup, they just weren't available at the same rate that they had been the last couple of years. He was, in 2021-2022, he ended up being a key portion of that Kevin Fiala and Matt Boldy line that tore it up down the stretch at the end of the 2021-2022 season. And he had a big year in 2022-2023 as well. But just the opportunities dried up, the injuries took a toll, and he just never had solid footing for the entirety of that season last year. And this year comes into the year healthy, had the entirety of the offseason to heal up, get himself in position. But it's interesting, too, is it was a little bit of a slow burn to start this season for Freddy Gaudreau. Like, you look at what he has done so far this season, if you kind of break it up month by month. You start in October, and for Goudreau, he had 2 goals and an assist through the first 9 games of the season. You expand that out to November. 4 goals, 9 assists, 13 points in 24 games. You expand that out to the end of 2024, 16 points in 38 games, 7 goals, 9 assists. So in 2025 so far, Freddie has 11 goals and has been more of a consistent part of this puzzle. I think he is starting to find those key identity spots on this team. He is currently second on the team in goals in 2025 behind Matt Boldy. He's got 11. Boldy has 12. So he's starting to find that consistent footing here in 2025 as the season rolls along. But there are some other key reasons for the bump in scoring, the return to normal for Freddy Gaudreau. We'll take a look at those, as well as some additional usage that has paid off for Steady Freddy here in 2024-2025. That's all coming up as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked on Wild is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. I found numerous subscriptions that I was just auto paying that I no longer use. But the frustrating part is that you don't see that stuff every day if you're just looking at like a detailed itemized list of your bank transactions. Sometimes there's so many of them. But Monarch makes it so easy to sift through and look at different things that you're paying for. It was easy to catch and correct. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked on Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms if you have not already, so you don't miss out on any new episodes here down the stretch into the final push towards the postseason. So we're talking Freddy Gaudreau today, and the stark contrast in numbers from last year to this year is quite impressive. So Goudreau is shooting now a career high 17.5%. Is that sustainable? Probably not. But he is two shots on goal fewer than he had last year. He has a couple more shot attempts. Total shot attempts, he's at 189 this year. He had 185 all of last year, 105 total shots on goal. He's got 103 shots on goal this year and 18 goals. If we go to the NHL Edge stats for this season, here is where Goudreau ranks in his numbers across the league. As far as shots on goal, Goudreau is back to owning the high danger area. He has 22 high danger shots on goal. Now that number is below average compared to different players across the league, but he has 7 high danger goals this season. That is above average for the average forward throughout the league. Average forward has 5.7 high danger goals. And here's the big key. The average shooting percentage for a forward or defenseman in high danger chances. Average shooting percentage is 20.2%. Freddy Gaudreau, 31.8%. So Goudreau is not necessarily getting a high number compared to other forwards. He's not getting a high number of high danger shots on goal, but he is capitalizing on those that he does get. He, one of the few that is actually capable of finishing on this team. There's a lot of finishing issues for this Minnesota Wild roster without Kirill Kaprizov. That shouldn't be a surprise, but those problems do exist. So Freddy Gaudreau, in close where it matters the most, 31.8% on his high danger shots on goal. So that's good. That is 93rd percentile in the league. Sustainable, but it is something that when he gets to that location, he is capable of scoring. Now, how about medium danger? Freddie's got 38 shots on goal from the medium danger area, which is right in between those face-off circles. Average forward has 25.7 shots on goal in that same zone. So Freddie with 38, he's in the 73rd percentile. 6 medium danger goals for Steady Freddie compared to 3 for the average forward. So he's 79th percentile there. And his shooting percentage is 15.8% in the medium danger areas compared to 11.9% for the average forward. So he's in the 70-ish percentile for all of those medium danger categories. And in the low danger, he has been more effective than average in all those categories too. 14 low danger shots on goal. So that's a low percentage compared to where the rest of his shots are coming from. Average forward has about 8 low danger shots on goal. So he's 81st percentile there. He has 1 low danger goal compared to 0.3 for the average forward. And he's shooting 7.1% from the low danger areas. But again, not taking as many of those perimeter shots as his other shots on goal. So that's one big reason as to why Freddie's production has improved this year, has gotten back on track. If you go back to 2022, 2023, in those same areas, Goudreau in the high danger areas in 2022, 2023, when he scored 19 goals, he was similar level of success. He had 34 shots on goal in 2022, 2023 from the high danger area and 10 goals. So he shot 29.4% from the high danger, which was 95th percentile in 2022, 2023. How about medium danger? He had 43 medium danger shots on goal and 3 goals, which was right about average. So he was very good from in close, about average from middle, and from long range, he was in the 70th percentile in shots on goal, goals, and shooting percentage compared to average. Now, this past season, those numbers all, as you would expect, took a sizable dip. High danger opportunities, Goudreau had just 13 high danger shots on goal. That was below 50th percentile. The average last year was 32. 2 high danger goals. The average for a forward was 6.3. Shooting percentage was 15.4, so it's not terrible. But the average was 19.8. So he was well below average last year in his worst season with the Wild offensively, whereas he was, above average in those categories in the last couple of seasons in which he has put out his near highest goal output in both years. So, and again, that points to the injury hampering his ability to shoot the puck. But not only that, the skating too. Like the skating distance for Freddie in different areas, in hot even strength situations in 2023, 2024, when he was battling the injury, he logged 122 total miles skated. So this is going to be a little bit more of a long burn, but just bear with me here. 122 total miles skated. That was in the 51st percentile, so pretty much an F. Average per 60 was just over 10 miles. And that was when he was dealing with the rib and other injuries. This season, in even strength, in terms of skating distance, he's already up to 160 miles. And his average per game is 10.16. So he's back up to being able to move around the ice more regularly, as opposed to having to be more of a stationary play for the Wild. And if we go back to 2022, 2023, when he had the 19 goals, his skating distance at even strength, 174 miles. So, and his average was slightly over 10. So what is the skating mile? What does that mean? That means he is able to move around the ice and get to different points of the ice, get high, get low, move from side to side freely and without being hampered. 40 miles worth of distance lost last year in his skating. Rib, core, you got to rely on that a lot. And if you're battling injury, it's hard to move around. So coming into this season healthy, it has been a huge piece of the puzzle. And being able to just comfortably move around and shoot the puck and get in close has been another big piece of this puzzle for Freddy. But there have been a couple of other things that have led to Goudreau putting up better numbers here this year. Some usage on special teams. We'll talk about that, and just generating by himself. He hasn't had the high caliber line mates like he has the last couple of seasons. So we'll talk about just taking things into his own hands as well as we finish today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. I got a bag sitting right over on my coffee table, honey roasted, no shells. So you're ready to eat the moment you pop the bag open, and good luck trying to hold yourself to just a couple of handfuls. I've done it before where I've eaten a whole bag. Just, we were watching TV all day or watching a couple of movies, and the next thing you know, it's gone. They are that good. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving is 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. So get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, plan for the postcast for this week. We won't have one Friday or Sunday, but then we will be back to normal against the Sharks. We'll have a live watch party for you. The game against the Calgary Flames. That'll be a late game, but we'll hang out and see how things go against the Calgary Flames, and we'll adapt from there. We'll be ready to go, all hands on deck, depending on how things play out for the Wild here down these last few games. But just want to circle back to a couple of other things as to how Freddy Gaudreau has been able to rebound after a pretty frustrating season for him last year. Let's talk about the usage here this season. Freddy has equaled his power play goals for the last 2 seasons combined this year with the Minnesota Wild. He had 3 power play goals and 2 shorthanded goals, by the way, in 2022-2023. He had 2 power play goals in 2023-2024. He's got 5 this year. Now, he does not have any assists, but with the struggles of power play 1 and with the injuries, we have seen Freddy get some more usage on the power play this season than he had previously. The total minutes in those situations for Freddy over the last couple of seasons was pretty sparse, but this season he has, he has factored into to some of the scoring in those areas. So being able to capitalize, especially on that power play 2 unit, when the top power play has not been able to get it done, that has been a big source of power play opportunities for him so far this season. Again, he has not really been. He wasn't utilized a ton in that area last year, but he's come up big in some key spots in those areas so far this season. If we look at the points shares, that is another area that I like to keep an eye on with different players. So Freddy, all told, last year, he was a negative 0.7 in terms of offensive point shares and a 0.2 defensively in 67 games last year. So collectively, he was negative 0.4. This year, he is at 2 offensive point shares, which is 0.2 off his career high, which was set back in 2021-2022. His defense is at 1.5. That's the second highest in a season he's ever had. All told, he's at 3.5 point shares, which is the second highest he's had in a season in his career. And those figures rank in the following. The 3.5 ranks 9th. 3.5 total ranks 9th on the team in terms of total point shares. The 2 offensive point shares ranks 6th on the team and is behind the usual suspects: Kirill, Kaprizov, Matt Boldy, Marco Rossi, Matt Zuccarello, and Jared Spurgeon are in the top 5. Defensive point shares, Freddie is tied with Marcus Foligno for 11th and 12th in terms of defensive point shares. But the offensive point shares is right on line with some of his career numbers. And think about this too, just as an observation, the number of different combinations that Goudreau has played with this season from a line combinations standpoint. He has not really had consistent offensive drivers on his line with him. There have been so many struggles with those offensive line combinations at generating goals that he is the most successful line that he was a part of was Marcus Foligno, him, and Yakov Trenin. And in 189 minutes, that combination generated 9 total goals. He's also played with Marcus Foligno and Ryan Hartman. He has played with Marcus Johansson and Matt Zuccarello. He's played with Joel Eriksson Ek and Ryan Hartman. He's played with Liam Ogren and Yakov Trenin. He's played with Marcus Foligno and Vinny Hinostroza. He's played with Liam Ogren and Ryan Hartman. Need I go on? There have been a lot of different combinations that Freddy Gaudreau has played with. Whereas if you look at the last couple of seasons, let's go to 2021, 2022, for instance, when he had 19 goals, his career high in goals. He was with Matt Boldy and Kevin Fiala. They played 445 minutes together, and roughly 45 games. They outscored their opponents 34-18. They had a goals for per 60 minutes of 4.58, which was actually highest on the team in a very high sample size. So you're talking about 2 pretty talented wingers, but Kevin Fiala definitely leading the bus on that line. But you've got talent on both sides. You've got offensive driving ability on both sides to push the play up, and then Goudreau was able to capitalize on being set up for different shots. in 2022, 2023, when Goudreau hit his career high in goals. His most common line combination, the one that he played the most with, was with Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Zuccarello. And that line didn't do a ton, but he also was bounced around in the lineup quite a bit. Played at different points with, there's one line combination here where he was with Greenway and Duhaime. Played with Matt Boldy and Ryan Hartman. Like, he had the ability to bounce around and generate in those opportunities. And this year, it's the same thing where it's a lot of different guys that are defense first, and he still is able to find opportunities and capitalize on them. So we now have 4 seasons of relative sample size for Freddy Gaudreau. And in those seasons, in 3 of those 4 seasons, we have 14 plus goals, 35 plus points. And those aren't like those numbers aren't, that's not top 6, but that's pretty solid production for a bottom 6 player. And, you know, it's one of those instances where I think we can pretty clearly point to the injury and say, yeah, I was wrong. Goudreau he's certainly capable of being a complementary piece. He's not a primary scorer, but he's certainly capable of being a complementary piece and doing a bunch of different things. So as far as changes go offensively, and honestly, the fact that he has the most faceoff wins on the team this year with Joel Eriksson hurt, and his faceoff percentage is at 48.8. I'm pretty comfortable at this point just saying, all right, let's try to do more of the same here and moving on to next season. Like, you look at his salary now, 2.1 mil for that type of production. This is what we were hoping we would get with Freddie. A guy that you don't have to worry about a ton. For bottom 6 production, he does just fine. So good to see Freddy Gaudreau bounce back, and we'll see what he has in store here down the stretch. But more chances in close, please. More high danger chances in close would be great. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Again, make sure to like and subscribe if you have not already, so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We've got new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.